So in my last video, you saw me cleaning up the bottom. Now it's looking a lot better. It's not perfect, but it's clean. But I was using WD-40, which means all the moving parts are now very dry. You saw me using a lot of kitchen towel just to wipe off all the WD-40, but it is dry at the moment. Now you haven't seen me use any sewing machine oil so far, but this is where I'm going to start using oil. But also using grease, because you can see we've got cogs here. There's also a cog this end. So I want to oil up, or initially I'm just going to do a couple of drops just to oil up the moving parts on the bottom. I can't do much oiling yet because I need to get a crank on the machine. So I'm going to just initially do a couple of drops of oil just to work the oil in. But I'm going to also grease the cogs here and then put the little caps back on. That means I can then stand the machine up better. So initially, you would have seen me, well, at speed, but you would have seen me undoing this screw, which was a bit stiff. This drops the feed dogs. And at the moment, so that's dropping the feed dogs down. And then when I lift that back up, that engages the feed dogs. But that is very dry, so I want to just initially just get a bit of oil. It's only a little bit, it's just to make that easier to move. And then a drop of oil there. And then, so I'm just working a little bit in. It just makes it easier when I want to drop the feed dogs. So I'm just working oil in. And that's fine. So now I'm going to engage the feed dogs and just screw that back in. And then what I'm going to do is just unwind it again. And that's just helping the oil to just work in. Alright, so I won't over tighten that, but feed dogs are now engaged. Sorry. Okay, let's do grease. So I'm going to be greasing this end and also feeding grease into that end. And what I've got is single lubricant, which is like a white cream, but I've also got a little, it's in one of those toothy things again. This is just going to help to get the grease into all the areas. And then what I will do is turn very carefully, because it's still stiff on the top, because the rest of it hasn't had oil. But this is just to work grease in, and then I can put the caps on. So if I start by putting some in, I haven't used it for a while, it's probably gonna pop. No, is this the right one? Oh yeah, it is. Hang on. So from what I've read, and I think it's very similar to, the 201 reminds me of a featherweight with all these cogs, but you only need to grease, if you're using the machine all the time, you actually only need to grease, I think every 6 months. So you can see I'm just, the machine's still stiff, so what I want to do is just make sure that's mixed in. I might use it a bit on the end here. Sorry, my daughter's decided to start blow drying her hair. So you could probably hear a hairdryer in the background. Okay. Now some of you might look and go, oh my God, Sam, you're putting so much grease on. I don't actually know how much grease to put on, but I'm just making sure that there is enough to keep it greasy. Well, that looks like enough to get it. Oops, I just sucked that in. Because when this is running, this is going to, be running at a lot of speed. Okay, so that's kind of, I don't know, can you over grease these things? Don't know. The cogs are greased there. All right, I'm just going to do the other one, and then I'm going to show you there's actually another cog, but the machine needs to be up for that. So let me just, I'm just going to do exactly the same thing, but on, is that in camera? There's a set of cog here. So I'm just going to grease those up, and I'm going to put the caps back on, and then I'm going to flip the machine and show you where the other cog is. Okay, so I've put these caps on. Now before I turn it and oil, grease the other cog, I am just, because I put WD-40 on, I am just going to give it an initial oil on literally every part that moves. So hopefully, I know some of this isn't in camera, but it is going to start to drip through, but I don't mind that. Let's get some up there. Because once the crank's on, what I want to do is spin dry it, but not dry, spin oil it, because it will work through the machine better when it's at speed. But that's just to get some initial oil going on all the moving parts. Right, let me show you where this other cog is. Okay, I'm going to show you from this angle, because the other cog, can you see it, is there. Where's my pointer? You can see the cog there, but I can't do this unless I have an extra hand. I lift it up this way. There it is. Get it in the right light. So there is a cog there, and then it's connecting there. So I also need to grease that. So I'm going to do that next, and then we're going to get the balance wheel on and a crank on, and then I can start oiling the machine a bit more. So give me 2 seconds while I just grease that. Okay, let's focus on the balance wheel end, because once I've got a crank on there, I can start oiling the inside a lot better. So we needed to put this section on first. Hang on, let's get a screw in there and a screwdriver ready. Can't see the screw hole. And then, right, so that's one on the go. Let's get the other one in. Okay. Now what I don't want to do is over tighten these. Right. Bobbin winder's on. Oh, I do have a new tyre, so let's just get that tyre on. Now, I used to hate putting the balance wheel on. I used to just, but because you've got to make sure that you set it up right with the clutch. First thing I am going to do is just pop some oil. Now I know it's going to drip, but I don't mind that now because I've given it a surface clean. Because this guy has to go on, and it's better that he goes on with oil. And then that's right. So that's all I'm doing at the moment. Is just mix. Okay, actually, let's put a bit more on because once he's on, we do want him to slide nice and smoothly. Okay, that's nice. Now I have given the balance wheel a surface clean. I have not polished this yet, but I find it easier to polish the wheel when it's on. But that's on okay. So let's talk about the clutch. Obviously we've got the clutch knob, we've got a washer, and then we've got the little screw. Now with the washer, if I tilt it, you can see those two ears. Well, they're angled ears if I do it at that angle. So those ears are pointing down at the moment, and then when I flip it up the other way, they're pointing up. When you put this back on, those ears need to be pointing at you. Don't have them sticking the other way. Now with the clutch, when that goes, obviously that's going to sit there. And when you tighten that up, what you need to pay attention to, and I probably won't get this first time right, when the clutch is completely tightened, if you go by the screw hole, the ear, one of the ears of the washer needs to be to the right hand side of the hole, because when you disengage the clutch, it has to have, the hole needs to have free motion between those two ears. If when you screw this up and it's at its tightest point and it's this side of the ear to the left hand side, it won't disengage. All it will do is just force that washer round. It's not actually going to, it won't disengage the needle. You need to be able to loosen it so that the screw is pivoting between two ears. Oh, sounds very easy, but it's not, because when that goes on, and this is why I don't like it, because that's going to fall. I might put the knob on and it'd be nice and tight, but my screw hole ends up this side. I need to make sure it's this side. But if you lift it and turn, the ears are in a different position again. And then if you turn it again, the ears are going to be in a different position. So I have yet to find the pattern for it. It's trial and error. So when you screw this on, when it's at its tightest, and you go to put the screw through that hole, and that screw engages on this side of the ear, you know you've got to unscrew the whole thing and then move the washer round to its next spot and then try the whole thing again. So let's see if I can do this. Let me move it back. So I'm going to have the washer, one of the washer ears at the top, and these little ears here are pointing towards me. So let's see, that slips off, so my fingers are too fat, but let's just get this going on. To the point where I can't hold the washer anymore, and I'm just going to, because I can't see, so let me just turn it, because you can sometimes get a good angle. So that's at its tightest point. Oh, you can't see it, hang on. Let me see if I can show you, because what I'm looking at. Oh, focus, right. So, where's my pointy? Okay. Whoops, sorry, I'm jiggling all over the place. Right. Knob, hole, and I've stuck that through. And if you look, that shiny thing there, whoops, there is one of the ears. So I've tightened it up as much as I can, and when I put the screw in, it's going to lock to the left hand side. So when I unlock, it's going to bounce between the two ears. In theory, that looks like I've done it first time, but which is lucky, because most of the time I get it wrong. So that is in. Oh, where's the little screw? Let's put the little screw in, and then we can see whether I did that right or whether I was waffling then and have to do the whole thing again. Because what you don't want is this screw to be pushing onto the washer. So that's I know you can't see this. Let me turn it that angle. Right, so that's making the needle go up and down. So now if I disengage the clutch, oh, look at that, it worked first time. Whew. Now it's disengaged, but that's because the screw is between the two ears of the washer. So if I hear that, it's hitting that washer, and then when I bring it up, it's going to come up to the next washer. But that's what it's hitting on. The screw is actually hitting on one of the washer ears sticking out. So that disengages. Lovely. And then when we tighten it up, the screw is then connecting with the other washer, and then that is making the needle go up and down. Okay, I'm so pleased that I did that first time. I never do it first time. So now I still haven't cleaned the body yet, but I want to start getting some oil into this machine, because if I use my finger, there's a stiffness there. There's definitely a stiffness there. So it's all very stiff, but I want to get the crank on. Now I do have a spare crank. Now what I'll do is I will push. Oh, for goodness sake. Sorry, let me just go and get that. And the doorbell wasn't even for me. Okay, let's get the crank on. So there's my crank. This groove has to match up with this groove in the boss. I think it's called a boss. And then the finger has to engage into one of the spokes. And it's disengaged at the moment, so all I want to do is just line up the boss enough to get the screw going, because it will. Don't cross thread the screw. Screwdriver. No, it's not. Oh, have I got the wrong size screw? Oh, that's annoying. My crank screw doesn't go in, or does it? Ah, okay, so the crank I have, the boss bolt, is actually too wide for that. Okay, let me go and get another one. Stay there. So you wouldn't, oh, that's the two different boss bolts, or hand crank bolts. That's the one that comes with the hand crank that I was going to fit on. This one is actually for my 66K Lotus bolt, but that's the one that fits. Okay. Let's try that again. Let's just get that moving to start with. So that's engaged. Let's screw that in. Okay. It now has a crank. Keep that bolt safe. Yeah, so I'm having to push that. Look, that's so stiff, it's actually making the machine slide. That's how stiff the actual balance wheel, the machine is. So this is where the magic starts to happen now. Now, obviously I can't clean all of the insides of the machine. That's okay. What we are going to do is kitchen towel. We're going to put this onto a washing machine spin. Now, is that in camera enough? Let's have a look. Let me see if I can move this back. So, initially oiled just the bottom, but I want to start getting some oil around all the top parts now. If the machine is in good condition, obviously Mr. Mashup isn't, but if it was in good condition, you only need 1 or 2 drops of oil when you're doing your oiling. This one hasn't had oil for such a long time. I'm going to do some glugging oiling. Not over oil, but I'm going to maybe do 3 or 4 drops because the oil needs to start working its way around the whole machine and it will start washing out the grit. So the reason why I put kitchen towel on the bottom that you can't see there. The reason I put kitchen towel down now is because a lot of the gloop inside will start washing and dripping down. That's what I want to do. I want to try and flush out the machine now initially. So let's get that there. Let's see if this will work on camera. So at the moment you can see that is very stiff. And with the magic of oil, hang on, I'm going to stand up for this. With the magic of oil, we should start seeing a big difference. Now, I want to get, hang on, I'll do it from this side. I want to start blobbing in quite a lot. So I want to start working it all the way down, all the way through. So I'm using just all the top oil points at the moment. It's all going to dribble all over the machine, but I don't mind that. I'm just going to do the oil points inside here. Is that even on camera? Oh, yeah, just about. So okay, bump. Let's go back and do a little bit more. Okay, and then yeah, there is an oil point there, so I'm just gonna pop some in. See if I can squeeze some there. As I say, it's just the initial washout really. I'm gonna pop a bit of oil there. Yeah, okay. So hopefully you will see this happen. Okay, I'm having to lean over the camera so you can see how stiff it is, but the more I move it, the more the oil is starting to wash through. And then what I'm going to do is start to pick up. Oh, it starts picking up some speed. Oh, that really is stiff. Because this poor little thing hasn't been used for ages. There we go. That's what I want to start doing. So that grinding noise is actually the crank. I'm spin drying it basically, or spin oiling it to try and get the oil into all the parts. So that's better than it was. But I'm just going to hang on a minute. I would like, there's definitely some stiffness here, so I want to just make sure there's a bit more oil in that end. It's definitely nice and smooth at the needle end, which is good. So I'm going to try it again. I'm holding on because it's still relatively stiff. Okay, that is a lot better, but that needs to, aha, I'm going to try and get a little bit more oil in there. Because this might take, this is the bit that might take just a little while to really start to free it up. Let me give it one more spin and then I'm going to turn it on its side and do a bit more. Oh yeah, it's definitely got a stiff bit. Okay, let me let that soak for a bit and then we will come back to it. So I'm just want to get some of the drip off the top. I'm going to leave this now for a little while, just while the oil is working its way through. But what I will start to notice is drippage from the bottom, and I can already see some drippage. That's a good thing. That just means that it's working its way through well, and just getting all those parts oiled up. So I'm going to leave it for now, and I will come back to it in a couple of hours. There you go, you can see that ends okay. I will come back to it in a couple of hours and just see how well it's doing.